Now, one of the things that probably you guys saw going around is there was the hack, right? The big hack. I want to add a not to that because there was this hack that went around. It was this meme that was saying that there will be, it's a bunch of high school dropouts and all these people who don't know anything about medicine and everything. That's actually wholly untrue. They have very experienced doctors and nurses and people with accumulated 100 years of medical experience on these panels. They have doctors with 20 to 30, sometimes 40 years of experience of practice. But what you should do is you should ask the HIPAA or Privacy Compliance Officer and ask them who will be doing your appeal, if possible. And you want the information, and you want to ask them what their expertise is with regard to, 1, your condition, and 2, the procedure that's being reviewed. So, unlike the claims and kind of that hack meme that was going around where these people are uneducated, it's not that they're uneducated. But the chances are that they're going to be educated about the really specific things that you're asking for. That's the part that's going to be low. And so if you ask them the really specific question of, what is their expertise in my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome? What is their expertise in SI joint dysfunction? What is their expertise in platelet-rich plasma? Those kinds of things, that's where you're really going to hit them with their lack of expertise. You're not going to hit them with that they don't want to admit that they're these, high school dropouts or whatever. Like, that's not going to be true. They're going to have plenty of experience. But they're going to be general practitioners or surgeons or stuff like that, and surgeons are not qualified for regenerative medicine unless they're regenerative medicine surgeons. And in order to make decent decisions, and especially if you end up going to the national level, if they don't have somebody who's an expert in these areas and they're not educated to make these decisions, and especially a lot of them aren't researchers, when you've provided them this research, you're going to really have a great challenge there for them. So that's a place where you can really get them on this. There really can not ever be experts on these things, ever on these boards. And that's where the catch-22 is for them, is that what you're asking for is so specific when you're asking for something that's experimental that they can't be experts on it. They just really can't be. And so that's where you kind of win, and that's where you get a little bit more leverage. So when you get to the appeal, you're only going to have a few minutes to talk. The first questions to ask, or have your advocate or doctor ask, is, do you have all of the records in front of you that I requested to have? Has the board, or the committee, or the individual there taken the time to go through all of the records and materials I provided for the appeal, including the research? And do they fully understand it? Now, if you have a doctor or health advocate prepare with them, what they're going to say and what you're going to say and all that kind of stuff, make sure you do that. If you don't, make sure that you have at least a letter from your regenerative medicine doctor or the doctor who's providing whatever it is that's your expert. If you have an advocate, have them talk a little bit more, and then you personally try to highlight your own experiences. And even if the advocate's a family member, it's best to be a vulnerable patient and let your advocate ask the hard questions and press them, and then you look like the person who really needs help. That can really help your case. They will probably say yes, that they have everything. They may complain about the amount, or they may say no, that it wasn't possible to get everything. If they say no, then have your advocate press them on that. But do not allow them extra time. Hold them to any of the rules. Say that they have to get it done in time. During the appeal, make sure that your advocate very much highlights, in addition to medical necessity, make sure that your advocate Highlights the difference in cost between the procedure you're asking for and the cost of other things. And this is that idea of leverage. And we're going to talk about that again later. The cost of your only other option really will probably be surgery, and then expensive rehab after that and everything. So if you really can have that highlighted, that could be a great thing for them to highlight. And especially if you have something like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, it might be that you can't have surgery, as we talked about, or that the outcome is expected to be poor and rehab will cost even more and all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to get a little bit more into leverage in just a moment. And then if you end up having to actually go to an appeal, this is where you work with one of those groups, like that pro bono attorney that we mentioned, or some kind of legal counsel. Now this can be from a health group or a local nonprofit. They do not have to be really experienced attorneys at all. Some law firms have pro bono attorneys that are willing to work, and really all they need to do initially is what's called discovery for the appeal and ask for the records that were used in the appeal. They don't have to do much more than this, but what you need to do is CC your attorney on all correspondences once you get them. This helps to keep things documented and helps to ensure that you have backup plans, just because if they end up violating your rights, which will likely end up happening with the amount of records and the short amount of times and all of those kinds of things, if you don't win the appeal, then you can still win via a lawsuit later to get the procedures paid for. Now likely none of this will ever happen because they're likely going to cave long before that, but on the off chance it does end up having to go to a lawsuit, the more rights they violate, the more grounds you'll have for a lawsuit and damages and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it means that you can get the money for your procedures regardless, but most insurance companies would rather just pay for the simple procedure that might cost a few $100s to a few $1,000s than to go through the hell of dealing with an attorney. So that's where we are as far as going through the appeal process. Now we're going to talk about what happens if you've gone through all of that and then you still need to challenge the appeal. So that's coming up next.